There will be 500 to 600 million gamers in India.
Half of India's population plays online games.
If you have a smartphone, game तो होगा ही उसमें. But still, that behavior of paying for content is not very natural to Indians.
One school of thought is that the entire real money gaming ecosystem in India is pulling the society down. People are getting addicted to gambling.
We are not born कि 9 से 5 काम करो आके सो जाओ and अगले दिन काम करो. Imagining a world where fiction entertainment doesn't exist, it is gonna be very depressive and dark. So in many ways, gaming is that one industry which we believe is it 10 industries are gonna originate from. That's why our honorable Prime Minister Modi ji says that this is gonna be a pivotal part for our $1 trillion digital economy dream. किसी बच्चे को बोलो सुबह उठ के 100 मीटर भागे, वो नहीं भागने वाला, बट वो पकड़न पकड़ाई में कर लेगा, वो छुपा छुपी में कर लेगा. That is the power. We can take something and make it super engaging and fun. So India has that amazing, unique distinction between games of skill and games of chance, which is absolutely phenomenal.
I have heard stories that people have lost their life savings, and these are like poor people. 2-3 lakh of life saving in real money gaming. What's your take on it? I have founder of Zupee with me, Dilsher Malhi. Welcome to the Neon Show.
Thank you so
Super
much.
excited to have you today and discuss a broad range of topics on the gaming sector in India. So let me start by what's the gaming overall in India, which is being played online or on mobile, and how do you slice and dice that market? And who are the players in that market?
Got it. So thank you so much for having me here. If I have to start very high level, like you said, there can be so many slices and dices. Let's just focus on the mobile side of it, because uh, we don't have that kind of console penetration that is in Western markets. So mobile mein, if you look at it, I'll divide it into two broad segments. One is free to play, second is pay to play. Free to play, then there would be further various segments. You can have your strategy games, first person shooter games, casual games like Candy Crush, Ludo King, board games, etc. So as per my estimate, there will be 500 to 600 million gamers in India overall.
Half of India's population plays online games.
See, if you have a smartphone, game to hoga hi usme, and you will play a game. So, and I think in terms of revenue, if I'm not wrong, so this free to play has two major models of monetization. One is advertisements, and second is in-app purchases. And if my estimate is not wrong, it should be doing around 800 million se 900 million ka saal ka revenue. And the metric, which is ARPU per user, is quite abysmal when you look at US and other countries. And उसके मेरे हिसाब से दो major reason है. See, ad rates are directly proportional to what your attention is worth. In any place where there is lower GDP per capita, where there are a lot of you, your attention is not going to be worth a lot of money. That's why ad rates are not as high as in India. In-app purchases as a behavior is still getting very nascently developed. कि जैसे पहले तो in-app purchases होते भी वेस्टर्न मार्केट्स के बेसिस पे थे, $4.99, $2.99. But up, because UPI आ गया, there are micro payments.
10
that
rupees,
is happening
10, 20 rupees.
Exactly, right? But still, that behavior of paying for content is not very natural to Indians.
I would assume it would be among the top 1% of the gamers. Let's say if you're saying 600 million, 60 crore people are playing games on mobile.
Yeah.
Only 1% of that, like 60 lakhs or 6 million people are paying for this in-app purchase.
Very strong concentration hoga on the top side. So that is the broader free to play segment, and then there is a pay to play segment. So the nuance is pretty clear. You can pay to play only if your game is dominantly skill. There's clear legal jurisprudence about that. So the key, again emphasizing the key point, is the game has to be dominantly skill. Everyone knows there's nothing such as pure skill and pure chance. There are so many random variables. Even let's take a game like cricket. Toss is a random variable. Even in chess, who moves first is decided randomly. And there's a slight first mover advantage. So the idea is always to look at the game in holistically and see whether skill dominates or chance. So in this, I'll say there are three major categories. One would be, I say DFS, daily fantasy sports. Then the second would be card games. You will have poker and rummy there. Then the third category, and this is just a terminology we use, is casual games. So as per my estimate, in fantasy sports, you will have anywhere between 150 to 200 million users playing annually. In card, I'll say maybe 40 to 50 million users playing on an annual basis. The largest segment is casual gaming. So let's try to define casual gaming. Casual gaming is like, as it's in the name, it's casual. It's like easy to play, light touch, not heavy first person shooter games. It's like done something like a very casual entertainment, time pass, easy to play. So that's where the largest base is. Our estimate is 400 to 500 million gamers are actual casual gamers. They play at least few casual games. So when we started in 2018, we were seeing uh, daily fantasy sports, which has been dominated by Dream 11. So a lot of other players also coming in the fantasy space. And similarly, a lot of people were just launching similar products in Rummy, poker. What we are looking at it is कि हर कोई सेम प्रोडक्ट ही लॉन्च कर रहा है सो उससे हो क्या रहा है कि कैक बढ़ता जा रहा है बिकॉज एवरीवन इज टारगेटिंग द सेम यूजर एंड एलटीवीज आर आल्सो गेटिंग स्प्लिट कि वही कैशबैक.
So for audience, CAC is customer acquisition cost, the cost to acquire one customer to play your game.
Yes.
And LTV is lifetime value of a customer.
Yes.
That how much that you can earn from this customer over a lifetime. Let's say the customer stays over 3-4 years.
Yes, precisely. Then you're like कि let's look at this casual gaming space. यार इसमें when I say 3 गेम काम कर रहे थे in the skill based digital space, I mean कि at least 100 million plus kind of revenue कर रहे थे. So we're very curious कि इसमें कोई क्यों नहीं बना रहा है. So we took it on ourselves. It's not like the games haven't been tried. So there were once Dream 11 became a big success, everyone thought, oh, ये तो easy लग रहा है कि प्ले स्टोर पे जाओ, सबसे पॉपुलर गेम लो, पेमेंट गेटवे लगा दो, यूजर एक्वायर करो और वाला I'll also build a $1 billion company. It's a bit like saying कि मेरे पास कैमरा है, मैं डिज्नी की तरह मूवी बना दूंगा. So for us, it was more like कि क्यों ये 3 गेम have worked so well, but there are a lot of these other games that have been tried that haven't scaled. So we went really deep into understanding the game mechanics and कि it was more like कि प्लेन बनाने की बजाय समझो कि चीज़ें उड़ती क्यों हैं. What are those fundamental mechanics at play which make these games tick? So, and the other very important thing was for us to understand कि what is a game of skill, right? So, and you can, and when we were starting, the game of skill was always defined very subjectively. Principles basis की, you know, mental alertness आ रहा है, memorization आ रहा है, analysis आ रहा है, hand-eye coordination आ रहा है. Okay, these are good principles to start with. But if you really want to commit your life to it, you need to understand a bit more scientifically and objectively what is a game of skill. So the first thing we did was कि यार let's study all the literature out there. So we studied every research paper that has ever been written, every legal judgment that has been done globally around game of skill, game of chance, consulted various professors, and we ended up building a very objective criteria, which we can discuss in detail maybe. Ki what is a game of skill? So the 3 tests that we figured out was, I'll just quickly walk through. One is that in any game of skill, there is a learning curve. That is, the more time you spend on the game, your skill should improve. So that is, again, all of these has to be statistic correlated. Second is persistence of skill. That is, if you've played enough number of games across 2 seasons, your performance can't wildly fluctuate. Like I'm a big football fan. So Manchester City, if it's a skilled team, so its performance over 2 seasons can't be like wildly different. कि हाँ, they are champions, score 90 points, अगले में 15 कर रहे हैं.
Yeah.
So again, you put statistic correlations there. And the third very interesting test was, are you able to show certain users which have demonstrated skill levels which is almost impossible to be in a game of chance? Like let's say if on your platform, let's say users have played 10,000 games and there is someone who has actually won 9,000 games, the probability of that happening in a pure game of chance coin toss will be 10 to power minus 90 minus 100. So it's like saying कि एक monkey को आप typewriter पे बिठा दो, what is probability he can produce a Hamlet? It is that next to impossible. So there are way more nuances that goes deeper into how these tests are conducted, what is the right environment, other subjective principles. But this would be the high level idea of how to think about this.
One school of thought is that the entire real money gaming, ecosystem in India is pulling the society down because people are even if it's a game of skill, people are getting addicted to gambling, and only like 90% of the people will lose for 10% and the house to win. Right? And skill wise, the people that would have dedicated time to building higher skills, daily 1 or 2 hours they're spending on betting, on real money gaming in India. What's your take on it? Is it uplifting the society, or is it because it's such a lucrative opportunity? And like gambling has been in India, right? If you see Mahabharat, the largest war or the largest epic in from India or worldwide was caused due to gambling.
See, I think that's thank you for bringing this up, and I think that's where industry and we have to do a much better job at differentiating gaming and gambling. It's actually bit sad that we read articles जिसमें 2 लाइन में switch हो जाता है, पहले gambling होगा वो suddenly gaming बन जाता है. First I used to think कि typo हो गया क्या, but नहीं, it's so interchangeably used. See, definition of gambling is that it's the exchange of money in and money out is happening on a game of chance. Gaming is anything that is dominantly skill based is gaming, and our entire life we are taking calls, right? Which college to go, who to marry, which city to live in, which job to pick. All of these are calls, choices we are making. So skill based gaming is not gambling. That is the simple nuanced viewpoint that again I think we have to do a much better job so that there's clear distinction that happening here, gaming kya hai or gambling kya hai. Now I'll give you my broader viewpoint on and I'll maybe tell a bit about myself also. So I was born and brought up in Rajasthan. My dad was in police, now retired. So small cities. I somehow had a huge love for philosophy, psychology when I was a kid. I started reading philosophy, psychology very early. So, and all those big questions like, yeah, life ka point kya hai? Kyun, what is the meaning of life? All those questions. Then I went to IT Kanpur. I graduated in chemical engineering, but I had a love for psychology, so I did a lot of projects, courses there, and just a lot of it is just self-taught. My thesis is कि which is कि मत धंधों को 2 bucket में तोड़ सकते हो. One are vitamins, second are painkillers. Painkillers are like Ola, Amazon, Swiggy, Zomato.
You can't survive without them.
Yes.
Your daily life is dependent on them.
Yes, and then there are vitamins which enhance the quality of life. Life, which is like जैसे कि आपका गेमिंग हो गया, म्यूजिक हो गया, फिक्शन हो गया. वी आर नॉट बॉर्न कि 9 से 5 काम करो आके सो जाओ एंड अगले दिन काम करो. Imagining a world where fiction entertainment doesn't exist, it is going to be a very depressive and dark world. So that's where I think it's super important कि humans have this fundamental need to be engaged and entertained. That serves them, that brings the moments of joy and happiness in them. So that's our thesis, that you need both. The society needs Edisons as well as Beethovens. So and it's very nuanced. What I've seen is key, and this we can track it over over history. Any new innovation or tool that comes in is seen as yaar ye kya hai, ye kyun hai. And this goes as back as to fire. The fire say you could kill bacteria in your food, cook food, you can digest earlier. लाइट का सोर्स था, वाइल्ड एनिमल्स को भगा सकते हैं, बट ऑल्सो यार इससे तो पड़ोसी का घर जला देंगे, गांव जला देंगे, ऑल ऑफ दैट. Then so many examples I can keep going on. The same debate now is happening in AI, right? AI, you can use bioweapons, but at the same time AI can be used to do so much good. So in many ways it's the same with gaming. Any tool has a spectrum. It almost always comes down to the right usage of the tool. So I'm not at all saying that there are not challenges. There are challenges, but let's look at the challenges. Let's try to solve those challenges, and let's try to retain the good part of it and manage or address the potential side effects of anything that is out there. It could be any possible thing in certain dosages, if you engage in, has side effects. So if you want, we can go through the challenges and how we think about addressing them.
You sure would love to. And especially, how do you prevent, like, people, I have heard stories that people have lost their life savings, and these are like poor people, 2-3 lakh of life savings in real money gaming come in severe debt. And this is akin to what happened in real life if they were playing, if they were gambling with that kind of money. So how does RMG industry prevent that from happening? Because it's a game for entertainment, and not to
Yeah.
like 90% of the people will lose money for 10% to gain, not to hold away or lose away your life savings.
So I'll fair question. So a bunch of stats, like if I remember correctly, 95% of our users engage in average entry fee not more than 7 rupees, which is chips ke size ke packet se bhi kam hai. But totally get it. How do you address? There could be even 0.1% of the users who can engage with it more than required. So let's define the challenges and let's think of potential solution. One is this responsible gaming part of it. Then the second is age gating part of it. Like RMG clearly is for 18 and above. Then third is the fair play part of it. Like how do you ensure all the platforms are providing fair opportunity to all the players? The fourth part is again, which I'll say is responsible advertising part of it. How do you advertise?
Yeah.
Then so there could be other things on top of my head. Let's pick. I think the biggest one is responsible gaming. So there are various ways in this which it can be totally addressed. That we have such nuanced ML algorithms right now that can tell when you are engaging in any kind of behavior which might not be good for you. So one of the simplest thing to solve this, which has been done in UK, is at the time of sign up you have to enter the amount which you're okay playing in a session, in a week, in a game, in a lifetime. So because when you're in the flow state, it might be hard for you to set those limits. But the moment you are coming on the platform, you define your entertainment budget. यार कि I mean अभी मैंने खेलना start किया है, I will set my limits, and those are
My loss limit is 10,000 rupees for you.
whatever. Yeah, it's for you. It's totally for you. It could even be 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 3 rupee, 4 rupee, 1,000 rupee, whatever works for you. Then, but I'll tell you the bigger problem is, and that's why like most entrepreneurs are against regulation. uh, I Again, regulation is such a tricky topic. It's a fine balance. It's never pro or anti. See, if you tightly couple it, innovation runs away. If you leave it open, then wild west, all those things start to happen.
And the most unethical players tend to win if it's a wild west.
That's the biggest problem in free markets. That so there is वो story होता है ना, I might be paraphrasing it, कि कैसे मार्केट इवॉल्व होता है, रेगुलेशन आता है कि लेट्स से एक फिशरमैन को सी का एक पार्ट मिलता है, वो मछलियाँ पकड़ता है, सडनली बाकी भी डिस्कवर कर लेते हैं, वो भी आके वहाँ मछलियाँ पकड़ने लग जाते हैं. देन पहले वाला में भी रिस्पॉन्सिबली वेस्ट को बाहर डिस्पोज कर रहा होगा, देन सारे वहीं उसमें वेस्ट आने लग जाते हैं, विच अफेक्ट्स एवरीवन. देन रेगुलेटर कम्स एंड सेट्स अप द गाइडलाइंस, यार ये ओके नहीं है, नहीं है. सो इन मेनी वेज एवरी न्यू इंडस्ट्री evolves in that way. So and the thing is, and even if let's say top 4 or 5 platforms are able to follow all the most responsible guidelines, that doesn't mean the entire ecosystem follows it. There is no authority I have over you to ensure, hey, this is how it should be done. So I think the better analogy is like stock markets. The same things happen. Like the ratios are actually the stats are actually worse in stock market, that the percentage of people who actually make in stock market is abysmal. The reason it's much more controlled is there's a regulator sitting there that which sets up the guidelines, which stops misleading advertising, unethical behavior by platforms, all of that. That's why any trading platform has to align with those things. So the bigger solve is like everything is actually solvable. You can put strong AIML checks, limits. You can have a blockchain based solution which we have pioneered to ensure fair play, that there's no tampering going on behind the scenes of algorithm, RNGs, bots, nothing like that. All these things are very very solvable, but you need someone who comes and say, yeah, this is the way it should be, which we don't have the authority to ensure every player follows that.
And are you in favor of pro regulation, and how will that regulation and regulatory body impact your industry?
So again, it's such a nuance. It's such a nuanced answer. Like, see, it's like I said, बहुत ही fine balance है. Maybe it is the trickiest balance to strike between innovation and regulation, right? Which I just said, ki tight it stringently, innovation dies. Leave it open, then it becomes wild wild west. So it's gonna be that, I think, is the trickiest thing to do, to come up with guidelines or frameworks which allow innovation to happen, but also sets up, because everyone wants to, all the real players want to operate very very responsibly
Yeah.
and contribute to the digital economy of India. If you look at any serious platform, most of the platforms are already doing the things that are going to be part of regulation. So in many ways we welcome it, because it provides a sense of clarity, because you see a lot of investors sitting out there who are just waiting to see this issue get resolved, and the kind of capital you will see getting into the ecosystem will be absolutely crazy, and that opens so many opportunities for the entire ecosystem. See, I think we have to look. I'll give you an analogy. The analogy is, in many ways, you have to look at gaming like automobile industry in 20th century. It's not just that कि बहुत cars बन गई तो car manufacturers को jobs आ गए. Look at the second, third, fourth order effects. उससे roads बनी, उससे आपके rubber and steel की industries का manufacturing कितना बना, उससे आपका services कितना खुला, fuel, on top of that car washes etc. Mobility आया, so people could seek employment, travel, hospitality. So in many ways, gaming is that one industry which we believe is thus industries are gonna originate from. Whether it's the interoperable assets, digital assets in the blockchain space, whether it's the VR, AR, whether it's the metaverse, whether it's just the creative storytelling, whether it's I don't even remember. There are so many things that this one industry is gonna let. That's why our honorable Prime Minister Modi ji says that this is gonna be a pivotal part for our $1 trillion digital economy tree. And then just the applications of gamification. So gamification is again very poorly misunderstood word. Gamification is seen as just adding leadership points, leaderboards, badges, all of those things. But gamification is more about how can you take certain things and make it enjoyable. Everyone knows working out is important, meditating, eating healthy is important. How can you leverage those principles from games and actually leverage in things that make your life more prosperous, fulfilling, etc., etc. I'll just give a quick example on that. So this was done by a genius hunter and gatherer ancestors. I give this example a lot because I love it. Even the games kids play today, which is tag, hide and seek, which is छुपन छुपाई पकड़न पकड़ाई, they were designed by them. कि उनको क्या सिखाना था कि शिकार कैसे करें और शिकार होने से कैसे बचें. अब किसी बच्चे को बोलो सुबह उठ के 100 मीटर भागे, वो नहीं भागने वाला है. So it's dreadful. बट वो पकड़न पकड़ाई में कर लेगा, वो छुपा छुपी में कर लेगा. That is the power. We can take something and make it super engaging and fun for you, and you deliver skills through that. And in many ways, with this crazy revolution that is happening of Gen AI, the most important skill in the 20th century is gonna be acquiring new skills. And acquiring new skills is very, very stressful. That too, when you get past a certain age. So we will have to figure out a way to make it fun. So that's where I can go on, but you get the idea. Like it's we have to look at it. Like this is gonna be the bedrock over which lot of capital comes in, lot of highly talented people work, go out and create even more powerful businesses. So like even right now, I think the total gaming segment would employ 5 lakh people directly or indirectly, but these are the top jobs. These are the businesses which have the most amount of amazing data scientists, data analytics, design, animation, engineers. All cutting edge stuff is happening on this, and this is where all the innovation happens. And that's where like each problem you solve ends up becoming a business line in itself. Like just the example of Flipkart business build करने के लिए उन्हें क्या क्या solve करना पड़ेगा, logistics is which become proper businesses in itself.
So assume, right, you are right, that Flipkart, though it's a $40 billion company, but the offshoots that came because they built this industry, there are so many unicorns like Shiprocket, Delivery, because they all started some second order, third order effect of Flipkart, and today it would command, let's say, $200 billion of market cap
Yeah.
in the overall Indian market.
Yeah. That's just amazing. Like I was looking at your podcast the same way you were mentioning Infosys Mafia.
Yeah.
So it was just one company, but what has it done to the net export of software from India? Is just it has changed the trajectory of our country.
Yeah, I think India's GDP runs on IT services, and the offshoot of IT services is that once that today, 20 years ago, this Indian IT exports were $5 billion. Today, it's $200 billion. But it's just not $200 billion of IT exports. It also created parallelly the SaaS industry in India, because once people started trusting Indian companies for IT services, now they're trusting Indian SaaS companies like Freshworks, Zoho, and this is just the start, right?
Yeah.
Indian IT services product command Freshworks, Zoho, $14 billion and expected to reach $50 billion. So
That's
massive
amazing.
second, third
That's
order.
just amazing.
Third order effect. Now I want to cover some part of it, right? How does Indian gaming market differ from rest of the world, right? Like A16Z in the US has a $1 billion gaming fund. How big is the US market? What are the, and how is it different from India? Similarly, how is the one of the pioneers in gaming industry, the Korea market? How is it different from India?
That's such a interesting question. I think I think many ways it comes down to see any society or culture. If I had to break it down, it has its social factors, economic, cultural, psychological, bunch of these factors, and technological.
Yeah.
So in many ways, like what US companies enjoy is just a huge domestic market. Their what would be their GDP per capita? I think 30K, maybe, I don't know.
It's more than 30K. The overall economy is like $40 trillion. India is at 4 trillion. India GDP per capita is $2,000. US GDP per capita is like $50,000.
Got it. Yeah. So in many ways, when it's a very interesting way to put it is, if you look at the top grossing sports leagues, I think 4 out of 5 would be US, and those are NFL, MLB, Major League Baseball, and then you will have NHL, National Hockey League, NBA. So, and you will look at these games, and then is football, which is played across, watched in 150, 160 countries, and like these 3-4 leagues have audience dominantly in US. So that is just the power of the domestic market, right? That you make a league just for the domestic audience, then there is leagues, football leagues, which are watched by 170 countries. This still dominates in terms of revenues. So just a vast profit pools, spending capacity, high GDP per capita that exists is just amazing. So that's why, and that directly reflects in your ad rates, in-app purchases, and you are more open to spend. So in many ways, lot of US companies enjoy that a lot. They tap into the normal to the local profit pools, then they use those profit pools to expand.
Yeah.
So while we still as India are getting there, right? So similarly, I think specifically Korea and Japan, that's where more cultural nuances come in. So again, high GDP per capita, being more tech savvy, tech adoption has been on the earlier side, and like just like anime, stories, games have just been a more celebrated integral part, and also maybe how the societies are structured. I think average friends per population is much on the much lower side in Korea and Japan. So in any case, your digital communities or digital ecosystem becomes more of a place to go to. So I think that's where all those macros, social, economical, cultural factors come in. So like even in US, so a lot of, you will see 15, 16 or even 14-year-olds, both parents are working. So kids come home, they have nothing to do, they engage in games. But most of Indians, so what I mean is, it's how community looks like. If there is a less community, less friends, less family interaction, so in any case you engage more in digital communities. So all these factors come into the play, and how it reflects then in the numbers.
I think what has happened is RMG hasn't taken anywhere off in the world, right? Except India.
So see, that's what I'm saying. India is unique in that standpoint. So there are various kind of nuances. There are certain countries where everything is allowed, whether game of skill, whether game of chance, and there are certain countries where nothing is allowed. So India has that amazing, unique distinction between games of skill and games of chance, which is absolutely phenomenal and amazing. And that is something we need to protect, so that it allows lot of amazing skill-based companies to come out of India and build for the world. Because uh, raw materials are all there. We have amazing engineers. We have an amazing culture full of stories, full of myths, just deep, huge amount of content that is out there. So all the raw materials are there, but it's like you have to crack a profit pool first. That's only when you can start reinvesting and developing the ecosystem.
It's almost like the Tencent story in China, right?
Yes.
Tencent has become so big
Yes.
that it started. It's one of the largest investors also globally.
Yeah. So that's very interesting to bring it out. So in many ways, we have seen there are three pillars. If you are able to crack that, you have really made it. One is the, I'll say, profit pools. If as a company you have profit pools, then your distribution, and then you built a great brand. So in many ways, Tencent did that. So Tencent, their distribution came from WeChat messaging apps. Their profit has come from the games. So when and they built a very strong brand, Tencent, because their products are the most well adopted. So when you have profit pools and when you have large distribution, you can practically go and win the internet ecosystem. So if I remember correctly, they own like 18% in Meituan, which is like food delivery for China. Now a gaming business has no मतलब वो food में क्यों कर रहा है? But that's the power of having large profit pools and large distribution, great brand. You can practically go and win the ecosystem.
Yeah, and do you have similar success stories like in India? Like Nazara is just on the starting of it. I think Dream 11 just started acquisition. They built their own 250 million fund, right, and started acquisition. But you are seeing these kind of companies build ecosystems in India now, the gaming companies.
I think the one company to in my head that could be analogy could be Reliance in many ways. It has the profit pools, it has the distribution, it has the brand, and in many ways they are building the ecosystem, right? So practically, if you look at any domain, you will see Reliance there. Like if you now all the key marquee properties are there. So Jio is a perfect example that they are practically creating and winning the entire ecosystem. So that again goes back to the power of profit pools, distribution, and brand. If you crack this holy trinity, you are like unstoppable.
And how is Gen AI changing the landscape of gaming, and especially building apps for consumers in India?
So that's something we contemplate a lot on. So in like very simple way to put it is it's just democratizing creativity. So you already see Sora and all those tools coming out that from a text prompt I can create a video. It's not gonna be very far away from text. You can create game mechanics and actual games. So what that allows is, and this is like such a interesting discussion that happens in our company, and also I learned happens on film sets as well, कि स्क्रीन राइटर को लगता है वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है, डायरेक्टर को लगता है वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है, एक्टर को लगता है वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है, बट ऑल थ्री कैन बी रिप्लेस. नाउ अ स्क्रीन राइटर कैन प्रोड्यूस मूवी एंड टू एंड. अ गुड डायरेक्टर can use chat gpt and gen ai to create amazing scripts and create uh, uh, avatars or whatever assets to create a movie. Now actor might say I have the biggest because I have the IP, right? मेरे face की वजह से सब चलता है. So it's the same thing in gaming. Like, is it the game designer who designed the mechanics, or is it the product manager, which is like the director, or it's the engineer which codes? So that is just sheer amazing and blows my mind. If that trajectory follows, what is there that can't be done? Like, and just you see like any smart 19-20-year-old sitting in a tier 3 town just who has amazing ideas. Just the abundance of creative ideas, abundance of creativity that's going to come out is going to be absolutely bonkers.
Zupee is quite a young company, right? You're 6 years old. You have achieved massive scale. If you can share some numbers on the scale, whatever is possible, and then we can go deeper into like what's the culture of Zupee like? Yeah.
So I'll say I'll like to keep it very high level because uh, really believe in operating in stealth. Stealth is a feature, not a bug. As per us. So we would have 100 million registered users. So in the casual gaming pay to play segment, we will by far the market leaders. So we have raised around $130 million, profitable, even post the uh, GST 28% shift, because we have built very fundamental, robust business model and an amazing team and culture we have built of innovation that allows us to do that.
And how big is the team right now?
So we are a team of now 300 people. We are based out of Gurgaon.
Okay. And what's the culture tenets at Zupee that you have?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest culture tenets we have is just first principle thinking. So, and this I think is the biggest learning I've had in my life. Might seem very simple. Ki doctor is a doctor, lawyer is a lawyer, because they've just acquired knowledge. Just not having those mental barriers that anything can be acquired. If you can just ask questions, anything can be learned, anything can be done. So that is one of the most powerful tenet we have in our company. Ki you're not just a designer, you're not just a policy person, you're not just an engineer. Everything is just out there. So attracting those kind of people and breaking those mental barriers, if you're able to do that, because all of these are just societal barriers we have created ki yaar mera yahi kaam hai, I'm only good for this. But if you are able to break those mental barriers, people can do amazing things.
What are the 5-10 books that have you gone back again and again, which have helped you build Zupee?
Oh, I'm a quite unstructured learner. So I'll tell you my framework. So if you want to understand human mind, I've realized like there are 5 6 domains you can marry very nicely. So one is you start like what happened like a billion years ago. That is evolutionary psychology, how we have evolved from a single cell to a multicellular organism, because a lot of our genetic software is hardwired. That's very powerful to study. Then you study what happened, let's say 10,000, 100,000 years ago, which is anthropology, how societies evolved, how religions were formed. So that's again, lot of it is conditioned, hardwired behavior. Then you study, genetics, early parent-child relationships, hormones, neurotransmitters, neuroscience, even studying how linguistic is insanely powerful, because everything is just happening in terms of words, and if my vocabulary changes, everything changes. So on top of that, there's a lot of amazing work that is happening on the computational psychology side, because it's very powerful to see the brain as a neural network, and that offers you just lot of plethora of insights, and that doesn't help you just on the designing product side, but helps you massively on the EQ side as well. That once you, because I think that's one thing I would love to change, that we as Indian society, we don't have a culture of humanity. See, being in an engineering college while others were doing robotics,
You couldn't take psychology courses
yeah,
in
I
IT.
was ridiculed for that. ये कैसे engineer है? And so, but that's what I say is we are a country of engineers who are great at what and how of it, but why उतना चमकता नहीं है. So that's why you won't see many B2C, or okay, I'll say vitamin business that have come out of India that has worked at a global level. नहीं है. लोग बोलते हैं बॉलीवुड है, but ठीक है. Bollywood is that one example of vitamin that has worked at global scale. So I think that to me is immensely important, that we build that culture of understanding the why, because your customers are humans, your investors are humans, your other stakeholders, everything is human, your teammates are humans. So if you are able to understand that, and more you are able to break out through your loops of fears, insecurities, you can just become an amazing leader and can bring the best out of them, and can just be a good human being to be around. So
And what's been the source of these learnings that you had on psychology? You study a lot of videos or papers or books.
I think it's just crazy inherent curiosity.
Okay.
So, like I said, it has been very unstructured. So I basically have read lots of things. I'm reading since I was 10 and 11. I've read all the great thinkers, your Socrates, Aristotle, Buddha, Guru Nanak, uh, anything and everything. And the beautiful part which I've realized is a lot of their learning start to converge. Osho, even that the fundamentals are actually same. And in many ways, it blows my mind. Like you read Rig Vedas and everything, they had already figured everything out. And like years and years ago, now we are sitting here. So it has been mostly research papers, some books, videos. It's just like hodgepodge of everything.
Sure. No, wonderful. It's been amazing conversation, Dilsher. I learned a lot about the gaming industry and how it got built in India. It's very unique. Thank you for sharing the story.
Thank you so much for having me.
sharing the story of Zupee and how you build an amazing company.
Thank you so much.
Really glad that we could do the podcast.
Thank you.